Welcome to the Fourth and Long podcast with Alec Pecado. On today's show, you'll get my conference preview for the Big 10, Big 12, the MAC, and the American, as well as a lot more. Without further ado, let's jump right in and get to our conference preview for the Big 10. Indiana won the Big 10 last year. Congratulations to them. I never got to congratulate them on winning the Big 10. But we'll see who wins the Big 10 in 2026. And we start with the Big 10 standings. My prediction for the Big 10 standings. And I did how many ones I think each team's going to get. Starting off in last place, 18th is Purdue. I think they're going to win 3 games this year. And so I know some Purdue fans are going to say, look, do you realize how much talent we're bringing in? Yes, I do. But this is the second year of, I think it's the second or third year of your coach, Barry Odom. And I think he is starting to put together a good group of players in West Lafayette, Indiana. But I still think you're maybe I'm going to be fair, maybe 1 year away from at least being halfway decent in the Big Ten. So maybe look at 2027 as the year that you could maybe break through and make a bowl game. And 17th, I've got UCLA, and I think they're going to win 5 games this year. And UCLA fans, I want you to listen to me. Yes, you did get Nico Iamaleava back, but you have a whole new coaching staff. Bob Chesney, one of the best up-and-coming coaches, and I believe he could turn Nico into a somewhat decent quarterback that can help y'all win 5 games. 5 games is my ceiling, is my floor. Honestly, 5 games, you should be happy if you win that many. 16th in the Big Ten, I have Rutgers. And I think they win 6 games this year. It's Greg Schiano. They've got a new quarterback now. Callie McManus is in the NFL. They do return KJ Duff, which everybody says, oh, KJ Duff should have went somewhere else. No, KJ Duff chose to stay at Rutgers for one reason, because he knows he's going to be a starting receiver there. If he goes somewhere else, he may not be a starting receiver. He may not be a number 2. He may be a number 3, and I don't think he wants that. The issue with Rutgers is their defense. Their defense was below average in 2025. If they could get a halfway decent defense in 2026, I think we could see Rutgers win 6 games. At number 15, I have the Terrapins of Maryland. And I also think they will win 6 games. Mike Locksley's back for another year. Malik Washington goes into his second year as the starting quarterback in College Park, Maryland. I like what they did in the transfer portal with some of the additions. But the issue is they're in the Big Ten. Yes, they may compete in some games, but there's a lot of their games. A lot of their games are probably going to get blown out. And Mike Locksley is still on the hot seat, regardless of what people want to say. At 14, I have Wisconsin, and I think they're going to win. Okay, there's with Wisconsin, I'm going to explain why I say 7 wins. There is a way they can win 7 games. And that is if everybody on the team stays healthy, including your quarterback, because they have had horrendous quarterback play the last 2 years. And that's what's got Luke Fickell on the hot seat. And if they could get halfway decent quarterback play, I think Luke Fickell's job is safe, at least probably until the end of the season this year. But the other, if they get horrendous quarterback play like they have the last 2 years, Luke Fickell's gone. It doesn't matter if it's the end of the season, middle of the season, or if they start 0-3 like James Franklin did like Brett Pry did with Virginia Tech. And the AD says, look, we got to get a new voice in here. And that's where Luke Fickell gets fired. In my honest opinion, and I know what people are going to say, oh, your opinion doesn't matter. Fickell should have never left Cincinnati. He should have stayed at Cincinnati. 13th in the Big Ten, I have Northwestern, and I think they win 7 games in 2026. I like what Northwestern's doing. Their new stadium is ready for this year. If they could get, just like I said about Wisconsin, Northwestern's issue last year wasn't necessarily quarterback play. It was they had an anemic offense. If they can get a half-decent offense this year and their defense improves to mid-tier, middle of the Big Ten, they can win 7. They can be an easy bowl. They can make a bowl game very easily this year in the Big Ten. At number 12, I have Minnesota, and I think they win 8 games in 2026. I like PJ Fleck. I like Drake Lindsey. I know Drake Lindsey was kind of in trouble. And in the offseason, he got arrested for something. But this is a big year for PJ Fleck. If they can win 8 games, PJ Fleck's job is safe. If they don't win 8 games, I think he might be one of the first coaches to get fired. At number 11 in the Big Ten, I have Illinois. I think they also win 8 games. And Brett Bielema continues to save his job as head coach at Illinois. Yes, we've talked about him the last 2 years on this show as a coach that's been on the hot seat. And somehow he survives and just keeps moving on as the head coach at Illinois. I don't know what to say. At number 10, and I know this is going to be a hot take, Michigan State is at number 10 for me, and I think they win 8 games. Here's why. They hired Pat Fitzgerald. To me, I know there's people out there that say, oh, they didn't have anybody else they could hire. They did, but Pat Fitzgerald knows the Big Ten like the back of his hand. He was at Northwestern for a really long time. And I think Michigan State made a great hire here of Pat Fitzgerald. And I think it's going to show in his first 2 years at Michigan State. I think this year they're going to get 8 wins, and I think they might beat their rivals. At number 9 is that little pest that just won't go away, and that is Iowa. And I think Iowa's going to win 9 games this year. Kirk Ferentz always finds a way to upset and beat a team that they're not supposed to beat. Could be Iowa. I mean, it could be Iowa State. Could be Ohio State again like it was in 2017. And I don't need people reminding me of that because I don't need to be reminded. But Iowa, the other thing with Iowa is they always have a good defense. The last couple of years, their offense has kind of turned the corner. Back to the Big Ten still. We get to number 8. So number 8 in the Big Ten for me is Nebraska. And I think they're going to win 9 games in 2026. Dylan Raiola's gone. They did bring in transfer quarterback Anthony Calandria from UNLV. Matt Rule goes into a big year, number 4. And they bring back most of the guys from last year, other than Emmett Johnson and a couple receivers. I could easily see Nebraska being one of those sleeper teams in the Big Ten. Number 7 in the Big Ten I have is Michigan. I think they also win 9 games. My record prediction for them is 9-3. There are 3 losses. One is going to be to Oklahoma. The other one's probably going to be to Iowa, and then they're going to lose to Ohio State again. And I'm not saying that because I'm an Ohio State fan. Ohio State has the better roster than Michigan. But Michigan, let's talk about Michigan here for a second. Bryce Underwood goes into year 2. Whole new coaching staff, Kyle Whittingham. That's why I have a little bit of faith in Michigan, because it's Kyle Whittingham. Look what he did all those years at Utah. If it was somebody else, I would have Michigan further back in the standings. But I have them winning 9 games. I think Bryce Underwood does take a small leap in year 2. At number 6 in the Big Ten, I have Washington. And I think Washington's going to win 9 games this year. We're over that whole Damon Williams debacle. He's back with Washington. And he's got Jed Fish as his coach for another year. I think Damon Williams is in for a huge year this year for Washington. Watch out for Washington as somebody that could sneak their way, backdoor their way into the Big Ten championship game. At number 5, I have Penn State, and I think they're going to win 10 games this year. If you look at Penn State's schedule, they don't play Ohio State this year, they don't play Michigan, and they don't play Oregon. 3 of the big boys in the Big Ten. So you could say Penn State has one of the softer schedules in the Big Ten this year. And that's why I'm propping them up to have 10 wins. I'd like to hire Matt Campbell. He's already in the top tier coaches in the Big Ten. With Lanning, with Day, with Cignetti. Yes, I did leave Whittingham out of that conversation for one reason. He hasn't proved anything yet at Michigan. If he can keep Michigan afloat and keep them out of trouble, I'm not going to get into the latest scandal they have at Michigan, because that's for a different show. But back to Penn State. Matt Campbell brings over most of his guys from Iowa State. So it's Penn State, but it's all the transfers from Iowa State that came with Matt Campbell. Therefore, I think they win 10 games, and they could be another team. Like I said about Washington, watch out for Penn State to backdoor their way into the Big Ten championship game and maybe even get back into the playoff. 4th in the Big Ten, I have USC. And I think they win 11 games. This is a big year for Lincoln Riley. We saw it toward the end of last year. We know Lincoln Riley is an offensive-minded head coach. But we saw it toward the end of last season, the defense take a step up for USC. Now, can they keep doing that in 2026? If they can, watch out for USC as another team that could sneak their way into the Big Ten title game. Jaden Mayava's back. And I can see USC being one of those dangerous teams. Number 3 in the Big Ten, I have Oregon. I like Dante Moore, I like Dan Lanning, but they lost a lot on defense. They lost a couple guys on offense. They lost the tight end. They lost Kenyon Sadiq. He got drafted in the first round. I still could see Oregon winning 11 games. Second in the Big Ten. And I know what some people are going to say. Oh, this is him being biased. I have Ohio State, and I think they can win 12 games, with maybe only losing maybe 1 or 2. And one of those losses might be Texas. And maybe an Iowa or a USC later in the season. But yes, I know what y'all are going to say. Oh, they lost. Ohio State lost Caden McDonald, Caleb Downs, Clarnell Tate, a bunch of offensive linemen. Yes, they did, but they also brought back one of the best receivers in college football in Jeremiah Smith. Jillian Sayans back. I know Brian Hartline is now the head coach at South Florida, but you brought in Arthur Smith to be your offensive coordinator. That defense is still going to be really good. I think Devin Sanchez and Jermaine Matthews Jr. are going to be one of the best cornerback duos. Will be one of the best cornerback DB duos in the Big Ten. And at number 1 in the Big Ten, until further notice, is Indiana. Defending national champions. I think they win 12 games this year. I know there's people out there saying, oh, Indiana's going to take a massive step back in the Big Ten. I don't see it. You'll see later on who was in my Big Ten title game. Now we get to the Big 12. Last year, the Big 12 was chaotic like we all expected it to be, but it ended up being Texas Tech that won the Big 12. Will Texas Tech repeat as Big 12 champs in 2026? Why don't we get to the Big 12? So, last place in the Big 12, I have Cincinnati, and I think they're going to win 4 games this year. Cincinnati fans, you use this as bulletin board material if you want. I may be coming to see a game up there this year or next year. I have not decided yet. But I don't think Scott Satterfield's making it through this year. I don't. I think he gets canned. I think he gets fired at some point during the season. 15th in the Big 12, I have UCF. And I think UCF's going to win 5 games this year. Second year under their head coach, Scott Frost. Scott Frost has kind of still got some holdovers from the previous coaching staff. But I do see UCF making an improvement this year and they could even win 6 games. I know I say 5. That's the ceiling. That's the floor I have for them. Ceiling is anywhere between 6 to 10 wins. 14th in the Big 12, I have Kansas. And I think they're going to win 6 games. Jalen Daniels is gone. They lost a couple other guys. I can see a world where Kansas only wins 6 games and they make a bowl game and they lose that bowl game and finish with a record of 6-7 on the year. 13th in the Big 12, I have TCU. I think they win 7 games. I'm hell-bent on not being too high on TCU. Because I've learned my lesson. There was one year I put them in the top half of the Big 12, and they completely pooped the bed and only won 3 games. So I'm not falling for that again. Sonny Dykes has put together a really good staff. At number 12 in the Big 12, I have Colorado, and I think they're going to win 7 games. This is a big year for Deion Sanders. If Deion doesn't win more than 5 games, Deion is gone. And we could see him in Tallahassee at Florida State. If Mike Norvell doesn't do good. And the thing with Colorado is, has Deion made up his mind who his starting quarterback is going to be this year? Is it going to be Julian Lewis, or is it going to be somebody else? I would hope he's hell-bent on having Juju Lewis be the starting quarterback, because if he's not, then that's a problem. 11th in the Big 12, I have Arizona, and I think they're going to win 7 games. Noah Fafita's back. Yes, I know this is the second year you won't have Tet McMillan because he's in the NFL with the Panthers, but I still think Arizona can win that many games. Number 10 in the Big 12, and it's a shocker to most because most people would have this team where I have UCF, where I have Cincinnati, where I have TCU, where I have Kansas. I have Oklahoma State at number 10. And I think they're going to win 8 games. And here's why. Yes, they may not have a really good defense, but their offense is going to score a lot of points. It is the North Texas offense from last year because their head coach is now Eric Morris. And Coach Morris brings over Drew Mestemaker and a bunch of his Louis luggage from Denton, Texas. And if we saw this Oklahoma State offense is going to be really good. Number 9 in the Big 12, I have West Virginia, and I think they're also going to win 9 games this year. Rich Rod has done it again in the transfer portal. I know last year didn't go well. And I also like that. I think it's going to be Scotty Fox Jr. as the starting quarterback for West Virginia this year. I like that. A young guy. Yes, he might need some. You might have some growing pains, but I still think there's an opportunity to win 9 games. 8th in the Big 12, I have Kansas State. Chris Kleiman is not there anymore. It is now Colin Klein as the head coach at Kansas State. Young, up and coming. He was the offensive coordinator. And he was also a K-State grad. I believe that they can win 9 games. 7th in the Big 12, I have Iowa State. I also have them winning 9 games. Yes, I get it. They have a new head coach, but it's Iowa State. What have we learned? And they did lose a lot of guys to Penn State, but it is Iowa State, and we've learned that they can still find a way to win. 6th in the Big 12, I have Houston. I think Houston can win anywhere from 10 to 12 games this year. Connor Wigman's back. They got really good quarterback play last year. Houston's going to be a sneaky team in the Big 12. At number 5 in the Big 12, I have Arizona State. They did lose Sam Levitt to LSU, but I do like that they went out. They did get Cutter Bully from the transfer portal, who's probably going to be the starter. Kenny Dillingham decided to stay, even though there was other job opportunities. But he's staying loyal to his players. Yes. Nowadays in college football, that's not something you see. If a coach gets a big-time offer from another school, he's gone. He going to dip. Not Kenny Dillingham. He stayed. And same with number 4, BYU. I think BYU is going to win 10 games this year. Kalani Sitake's back. He signed an extension. Bear Buckmeyer's back as well. Number 3 is Utah. We saw what they did with Morgan Scalley as their head coach in their bowl game. I think that's going to carry over to this year for Utah, and they're going to win 11 games. They've got Devin Dampier, who you might hear me talk about later, and Bird Ficklin. Number 2 in the Big 12. And these 1 and 2, I could flip because they're both going to have the same amount of wins, in my opinion. Baylor is number 2 in the Big 12. I think they're going to win 12 games. And Dave Aranda is on the hot seat, so he has to win this year. And they went out and got DJ Lagway from Florida, which I think that was a good move. Lagway wanted... I'm sorry, Gator fans. And Brad, I know you're maybe watching this at work, but I think it was time for Lagway to move on from the Gators. And number 1 in the Big 12 with 12 wins, I have Texas Tech. Yes, I know what people are going to say. Oh, they're another team that's going to have a massive regression. 1, because Barrett Morton's not there anymore. And 2, because Will Hammond is going to be their starting quarterback now with the whole Brandon Sorsby debacle. Yes, and yes, I can see both of those. The Brandon Sorsby one, yes. Will Hammond, we're not giving him enough credit. He's coming back for a torn ACL. We're going to see what happens. Now we get to the American. And Tulane won the American Athletic Conference in football last year. And this is our last conference preview for this video. We still got 2 more segments after this. But we'll see who's going to win the American in 2026. We start at number 14 with Charlotte. I think the 49ers are going to win. The Charlotte 49ers will win 3 games in 2026. And Charlotte's not much of a football school. Neither are they in any other sport. I can't see any way they win more than 3 games. 13th in the American is Tulsa. I like their coaching hire they made last year. He showed some improvement. I think they won 4 games last year. I think they improved by 1 game, and they win 5. I like some of the moves they made in the portal, but they still have a lot of improving to do. 12th in the American, I have Rice winning 6 games. And I think Rice could win more than 6 games, but they just need to get competent quarterback play. 11th in the American, I have UAB. And I think they're also going to get to a bowl game this year and win 6 games. 10th is FAU, 7 wins. 9th, and now I'm gonna get back into semi preview. 9th in the American is Memphis. And I think Memphis can win 9 games this year in the American. It can win 9 games on the season and win 4 or 5 games in the American. Memphis has a new head coach in Charles Huff, which I like the hire a lot. You've heard me talk about him on this show a lot and on the college football podcast that I do with Brad. Number 8, I have North Texas, and I think they could also win 9 games. They have a new head coach because, as you know, Eric Morris is gone. Neil Brown is now the head man in charge in Denton, Texas. At number 7 in the American, I have UTSA. And I think they can also win. As you see, I have 3 teams up here that I think 4 teams that can win 9 games. Being Memphis, North Texas, UTSA, and Army, which I'll get to Army in a minute. But back to UTSA. Owen McCowan's back for another year. They've got their head coach back. He didn't leave. And I like the trajectory. Yes, they did have a down year last year. But I think they could get back to the old UTSA that we knew the last couple years. 6th in the American in 2026, I have Temple. And I think they can win 8 games. Casey Keeley made this team a bowl team last year. And I may be stubbornly high on them, but I think they can win 8 games. 5th in the American, I have Army. And I think they're going to win 9 games this year and be one of the sleeper teams in the American. They had a down. They had a average season last year in football, but I think they're going to do better this year. Now, 4th in the American Conference for 2026, I have East Carolina, and I think they will win 10 games in 2026. They're another team that did not lose their head coach. And I like what East Carolina's building there in Greenville. East Carolina fans, if you want me to take a visit to Greenville, North Carolina, let me know in the comments of this video or tag me and post on Twitter or Instagram. 3rd in the American this year, I'm going to go with Tulane. Yes, they did lose Summerall to Florida. They hired Will Hall. He's had some success here and there where previous stops he's coached at Southern Miss and a couple other places. I like that he's kept some of the guys that were at Tulane. With Summerall was there, he's kept some of them there. 2nd in the American, I have Navy, and I think they win 11 games this year. Yes, I know Navy lost Eli Heinrich and a few other guys, but I still think Navy's going to be really good. And in 1st place in the American, I have South Florida, and I think they can win 12 games this year. Hartline did really good. First-year head coach Brian Hartline did really good in the transfer portal. And he retained some of the guys that were there last year. I was wrong. We got one more conference left. It is the MAC. Last year, I believe it was Toledo that won the MAC conference. No, it was Western Michigan that won the MAC against Miami of Ohio. So, why don't we take a look at the 2026 MAC standings brought to you by Alec Pecado. Last in the MAC, winning 2 games in their first year in the FBS. I have, at 13th, I have Sacramento State. 2 wins. If you look at their schedule, it is ridiculously brutal. The amount of travel that Sacramento State's going to have to do this year. And I feel bad for them. They should have joined a conference that was closer to California. They should have gone maybe to the Pac-12 or the Mountain West. That would have made more sense. But them going to the MAC, I don't see it. 12th in the MAC, I have UMass. And I know what people are going to say, oh, that's crazy to have them win. You can't get any worse than they were last year. Going 0-12, I think they're going to win 3 games this year. And you could tell me I'm wrong, but I like some of the moves they made in the portal. I think UMass can win 3 games. Akron's number 11, and I think they're going to win 4 games this year. They had some issues off the field last year that I'm not going to get into. And I think y'all know what I'm talking about. It was either them. No, it was Kent State. Correction, Akron fans. It was not you that was in issues off the field with your coach. It was the team I have at number 10, Kent State. I think Kent State in 2026 will win 6 games and go to a bowl game. They were ineligible last year for a bowl game due to off-the-field academic problems. Buffalo's at number 9. I have them winning 7 games in 2026. And we keep doubting them. I don't know what to say other than that. Ball State's at number 8. I have them winning. I think they can win 8 games this year. 7 is Western Michigan. 8 wins. 8 wins as well for Eastern Michigan. They're at number 6. 5, Bowling Green. I think they can win 9 games this year. I really like what Bowling Green did last year. Can they build on it in 2026? I believe they can. At 4 is Ohio. And Ohio, I think, can win 9. I have Ohio winning 9 games this year and making a bowl game. And if they can get double digits, maybe they could be one of the group of 5 teams that sneaks into the playoff. At number 3, I have Central Michigan. And I have them winning 10 games in 2026. Central Michigan they hang around every year, and they end up winning between 8 to 10. Going to win 10 games this year. Number 2 in the MAC, I have Toledo, and I think they're going to get 11 wins this year. And Toledo, they're always consistently at the top of the MAC. Same with the number 1 team this year in the MAC. I have Miami of Ohio, and I think they're also going to win 11 games, but they're going to have one more conference win than Toledo. Now, here are my 2026 conference championship game predictions for the MAC, American, Big Ten, and the Big 12. My Big Ten championship game is going to be a rematch of last year's Big Ten championship game at Ohio State and Indiana. And this time, I think the Buckeyes get it done. They get their revenge. They're going to beat Indiana twice this year. And Indiana's going to end up with 2 losses. But with the 12-team playoff being there, I think that Indiana can still get in, and they might see Ohio State again, and they might beat Ohio State in the playoff. My Big 12 title game is going to be Texas Tech and Baylor. As you saw, those are my 2 top teams in the Big 12. I like both of those teams to make the conference championship game. Now, if you had to give me a choice of 2 off-the-wall teams to make the Big 10 and Big 12 championship games, Big 10, off the wall, I would have to say Penn State and Michigan State to make the Big 10 championship game. Or maybe Michigan. Big 12. I want to say this. Okay. As 2 off-the-wall teams that nobody talks about to make their conference, the Big 12 conference championship game. And the American, my off-the-wall prediction for the American championship game would be Memphis and Temple. But I've got Navy and South Florida as the conference championship game. Both, I think Navy and South Florida, we'll see. They're going to pull away from the crop they're going to be the cream of the crop in the American. And then it's going to be Temple, Memphis, Army, maybe Charlotte, if they can, Tulane, and then my MAC championship game. Off the wall, I'll go with Western Michigan and Bowling Green. But my MAC championship game is going to be Toledo and Miami of Ohio. I love what Miami of Ohio's done in the portal, and I think they will win the MAC this year. And I will be doing a video on my win predictions for the American in, I believe it is 2 weeks. And now we get to the final segment of this show, of this podcast episode. And it is my top 15 QBs for the 2026 college football season. And I know this list is going to be controversial because there's going to be some quarterbacks that get left off the list that people think, oh, he doesn't know ball. I do know ball. I watch every single college football game every year. My 15th ranked quarterback for 2026 is DJ Lagway of Baylor. I like this move for Lagway for 2 reasons. One, he's out of the SEC. Yes, the Big 12 is still fast-paced offensive conference, but he doesn't have to worry. The second reason I like it, he doesn't have to worry about the media getting on him every week for having a subpar / bad game. That is why I like him going to Baylor. At number 14 is Devin Dampier of Utah. Yes, he did lose his offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, to Michigan. But I still like Devin Dampier going into 2026. I still think that Devin Dampier is going to have a big season this year in the Big 12. And that is why he's number 14. At number 13 is Bryce Underwood, quarterback for Michigan. And Michigan fans, I know you're going to say, oh, Bryce Underwood should be in the top 5. He has a lot to prove to me and a lot of other analysts in the college football realm. That is why he's number 13. Now, you can say, oh, put him at 12 ahead of a guy that hasn't played a single snap in college football yet. My number 12 quarterback is Jared Curtis, 5-star quarterback that's going to presumably be the starter at Vanderbilt this year. I have watched his high school tape. Vanderbilt's in good hands. He will be a really good starting quarterback for them. Number 11, Darian Mensah, Miami of Florida. And you will see how high I am on Miami when I do my ACC, SEC, Pac-12, and Mountain West conference preview. I believe it's the end of this week or beginning of next week. But I do like Miami this year, and I do like Darian Mensah. And at the time, I wasn't really fond of him leaving Duke, but I understand it was done. He left Duke because of the money, because Duke wasn't going to pay him. At number 10, I have Damon Williams from Washington. And I just talked about him a little bit in the Big Ten preview. Damon Williams could be a sleeper for the Heisman. I do know ball, according to some people, At number 9, I have Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss. Chambliss is back. He gets a injunction to play this year because a judge in Mississippi said, "Oh, he should get an extra year eligibility." I don't agree with it, but then again, that's why I'm over here just making college football content. At number 8 is Sam Levitt, LSU. I like Sam Levitt at Arizona State, but I think it was time for him to move on. And I love the move to LSU. Lane Kiffin's the head coach. They're going to score a lot of points. He's got a lot of weapons there. At number 7, I have quarterback Kevin Jennings from SMU. Rhett Lashley, if you're watching this, repost this segment. Kevin Jennings is my number 7 quarterback for 2026. I think SMU is another team that could be a sleeper in the ACC this year. At number 6, I've got Marcel Reed from Texas A&M. A&M's another team. They made the playoffs last year. I think they can improve on that and continue their uprising in the SEC. Not saying they're going to win the SEC, but I think they can be good. At number 5, I have a Dante Moore from Oregon. I know people want to say he's their number 1 quarterback. I don't want to disagree, but I have to. I do like Dante Moore, but I don't think he's a top 3 quarterback. I still think there's a lot he needs to prove this year. My number 4 quarterback going into 2026 is Arch Manning from Texas. Yes, I know people are going to say, "Oh, Arch is overrated." I would agree with you, but I have to put some respect on it and put him at number 4. If Texas is going to go anywhere this year, it's going to be because of Arch. And he's going to have a better year than he did last year. Not saying he was mediocre last year. He was good, but he wasn't great. My number 3 quarterback for 2026 is Gunnar Stockton from Georgia. And you know how I feel about Gunnar Stockton, ladies and gentlemen. I absolutely think he is the most overrated quarterback in the SEC and the country. But that's my opinion. But I still have to give him respect. And he's my number 3 quarterback. My number 2 quarterback is Jaden Mayava from USC. I think USC is going to have a really good season this year. And my number 1 quarterback is Julian Sayin from Ohio State. He's got the best receiver in college football in Jeremiah Smith. He's got Brandon Ennis. He's got Chris Henry Jr. He's got Bo Jackson. He's got a good offensive line, good head coach. Arthur Smith is a good offensive coordinator. If you're enjoying the episode so far, please remember, subscribe, like, turn on notifications so you don't miss any future podcast episode, because I'm leaning heavy into college football. But that's going to wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your Monday.